Morning, everyone, and welcome to the morning meeting. I'm Mark Halperin reporting live from Paris, France with Dan and Sean at home base. So happy to have everybody here. Thank you for joining. If you notice anything in my teeth, they're little vestiges of croissant. Happy to have you here. Sean, why are you looking at me like that?
Was it hot,
Did-
Mark? Was it a
This
hot
time I
croissant?
wasn't reading the
I
chat.
didn't.
I just
I didn't.
generally
I
don't look
did.
at the teeth.
I didn't really have a croissant. I'm just kidding. There's nothing in my teeth. You can look all you want. Very happy to have you all here on Friday, March 21st, 2025, the first and last day in American history, and I'll explain why in a moment. And we'll do our normal gig here with peace, love, and understanding, the presumption of grace for all. We'll take questions here from those on the two-way platform and watch head in hands as people put smack in the chat on YouTube and X, including MAGA people who should be riding high, given all the developments that are largely going in their favor these days, rather than being angry and lashing out. Enjoy the time. Your president's in office, and you shouldn't be so angry. I don't get why you are. In any event, Sean and Dan, thank you for finishing the program yesterday. How was it?
That was great. Dan and I finished our brackets. I chose McNeese. He took Clemson. I feel excited. I'm one of the only .1 people in America that also chose Drake to upset Missouri. I've got a perfect bracket.
I did too. I was in on that one. Yep.
Perfect bracket. Perfect.
Drake. Love the Drake. All right, let's run through the day. President's schedule. There's a really interesting thing on the pool. So let's look at that, please. There's an in-town pool and out-of-town pool because the president's going to Bedminster today. Sean, you spend a lot of time on Bedminster?
Ooh.
I did actually. It's
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
If you
Boy,
could
that's
have a
an
bed,
interesting time of the year to go to.
The only
New
thing,
Jersey.
the only thing I will say about Bedminster is that unlike Mar-a-Lago or whatever, there's not a ton. There's a Marriott, so if you're not staying on property,
Yeah.
which you're not, it's not as nice. I mean, like you're getting kind of you're getting that one Marriott. I think it's in
Yeah.
Princeton.
We want to see the pool lineup, not the schedule first. Have you ever stayed overnight at Bedminster?
No, because
No.
there's a handful of cabins where the president is, and I didn't rate.
Got it. All right. I've never been to Bedminster. I've been to Mar-a-Lago. All right. Here's the pool. Again, there's an in-town pool and an out-of-town travel pool. I don't see anything particularly interesting on the in-town. I think just the news has already been in the pool, I think, pretty sure.
Yes.
But Sean, Outkick, I believe, makes history today
They
by
do.
being the out-of-town pool.
This will be Clay Travis will represent Outkick. Clay Travis and Buck Sexton founded Outkick. It's a sort of a sports vertical that was bought by Fox, brought into the Fox family. So there's a woman named Charlie Arnott that was part of the, I think, ESPN but like they've really done that and now kind of become like pop culture, politics, and sports. This will be, at least according to the White House, the first time that a sports correspondent has been officially part of the pool.
I'm pretty sure that's true. Anyway, super interesting. Mr. Travis, a very nice man. All right, here's the schedule. 11 o'clock, the president and the secretary of defense deliver remarks in the Oval. I've been told various things, that this is about immigration or it's about Doge. I don't really know exactly what it's about. Either of you have any idea what this event is at 11? I've been told different things, so I don't know.
I mean, they seem to change their mind all the time, so who knows?
Then the president goes to Andrews and heads off to the Morristown Municipal Airport, and then at Bedminster, and again, we don't really know why. I bet he's raising money. That'd be my guess. Don't know what the vice president's doing. Much discussion. You can take the schedule down. Much discussion about Elon Musk's trip to the Pentagon today. Very bizarre situation last night, where the New York Times, followed by others, reported Musk was getting a super top secret briefing on how America would fight a war against China. The president, the secretary of defense, and the White House all denied that that's what the meeting's about, called it fake news. Hilarious coverage of it, where Politico's like, this shows how defensive they are, that if it were true, they'd be defensive, and how serious it would be if it were true, they had to knock it down. I don't know exactly what the facts are, but personally, given Elon Musk's role in the government, I know about the conflicts of interest, I don't see why it'd be a problem if he got a briefing at the Pentagon. If he had the proper clearance.
The funny part about this is if you go back and read the New York Times story, there's something in it that I think makes total sense, right? Hold on, I have it right here. But it says, If the Department of Doge wants to trim the Pentagon budget in a responsible way, they may need to know what weapon systems the Pentagon plans to use in the fight with China. Take aircraft carriers, for example. Cutting back on future aircraft carriers would save billions of dollars, money that could be spent on drones or other weaponry. So the bottom line is this is a Seventh Fleet fight, right? And you send a carrier group out there, bomb the hell out of it, lose our ships, we're screwed. So what are we doing in terms of future weaponry, drones, both submarines and air? Like, this makes sense. You want a guy that is going to come in and say, okay, what's our drone capability, both submarine wise and air capability wise?
Not just some guy, one of the smartest people on the planet, and someone who understands
zero
technology.
Military background. But let's just preface this.
But he knows about technology. He knows a lot about technology. I mean, Donald Trump had no military. Donald Trump has no military background. He's commander in chief. Okay,
but look, hold on. But he's not going in. So it's a lean, mean fighting machine under Pete Hegseth. We're getting rid of DEI and all. Send in the accountants. Okay.
No, send in the technology. The technology experts who are in charge of cutting. Again, I don't want to minimize the conflicts of interest. It's a big deal, right? Because he's got a lot of business in China. But I'm just saying, if you accept the premise that he's a senior official in the government giving a lot of advice that's being taken, he's an expert on technology, and he's got a big role in deciding how the Pentagon's going to cut his budget. I hope he knows how we're going to fight China.
You know what you would do then? You would come to him and say, okay, we need to update our technology because this is our battle plan. The military people put the battle plan together and would then go to the technology people. By all accounts, the fact that this leaked, and at first there was no response, and I forget who the Pentagon spokesperson who said the first response was, we look forward to welcoming Musk. He did not deny it was about China. Then when it got reported more and more, they completely changed their tunes, and everybody comes out against it.
No. Just to be clear,
we don't know enough to know.
So the way that the New York Times framed it was that he was getting briefed on the O plan, the op plan to go in,
and the Wall Street Journal.
And there's a big difference between saying this is the current size of the fleet. This is what Seventh Fleet looks like. The assets that are involved in the Indo-Pacific, AOR. This is what we're potentially doing. What do you think we need to be doing? What are our vulnerabilities? What could technology bring to the fight? That's what I'm actually grateful that someone's finally getting an outside perspective, as opposed to, hey, we need more large decks to come in that could easily be sunk, right? So giving somebody a briefing, briefings happen all the time. Government officials
on the top secret China plans.
Dan, I guarantee you, and I don't know whether he was originally going to get such a briefing, whether he still might. I have no idea, but I guarantee you he's had countless briefings on topics. If your standard held, you would say horrible, horrifying. So this is anyway. Let me finish running through the schedule.
He's had briefings. The original plan, the fact that they did not deny it when they were first contacted, the White House.
Dan, maybe they were busy. They're not.
No. They got
John Kerry. Okay. John Kerry talks all the time about how he didn't deny a bunch of stuff that was written about him for years, because it's like you just don't deny everything. Like, it's not, you don't have to deny it not denying it doesn't make it true.
So hold on.
You're right. It may not, but this is also one of the most savvy communications teams
I understand, but
I've ever seen.
If I were the Pentagon spokesperson, my attitude would be, I'm not going to be in the business of denying everything they lob over here, because we don't want to be saying no, and then we don't want to confirm something. Like, this shouldn't be public. A top government official getting a briefing on China shouldn't be a matter of public discussion. I'm all for press openness. I don't mind if it leaked, but I'm just saying it's not incumbent upon them to, every time someone comes to the Pentagon for a secret briefing on China, for them to talk about it. Let me just finish running through the schedule. The Congress is still out. Judge Boasberg is once again set a deadline for the administration to explain when the flights with the deportees left the airspace, etc. He's at war with the administration. He's not backing down. I'd like the Court of Appeals to start adjudicating these things, because it seems a little ridiculous for one district court judge to keep fighting with the White House. Bernie and AOC continue on their Western tour. All right, I want to move on to Donald Trump and Paul Weiss, but do you guys want to talk any more about Musk?
I would just say there is a big difference between briefings are a dime a dozen. Getting read into the O plan is a completely different thing. And so if he's going over there to get a briefing on the status of like what our assets are and what we can do, that's awesome. If he's getting read into the minutia of an O plan in a 20 deck, first of all, according to the New York Times, it's 20 to 30 slides. If you think that's the O plan, God bless you. I mean, that just shows you how stupid you are, that you think our plan to attack or deter China is 20 to 30 slides long. You really think that's our plan? I mean, well,
that's what they said was the slide deck for him.
Yeah. Right. But then that means he's
30
not,
slides we're covering the O plan for China.
It means he's not getting a full briefing.
I mean, I just always come back to, if Kamala Harris, if this was the opposite shoe, the horror about him being in there for the O plan would be to 11. But Dan, we would go to 12.
But Dan, it's 20 slides. It's 20 slides. It's not the plan.
If you think you can go over the O plan in 20 slides, you are never been in DOD.
But we don't even know what he was going to get or what he is getting. But
we can only go on what's reported. That's
no, we can't. No, but that's dangerous because people report things that are wrong all the time. We can't go on what's reported.
They may all be wrong. You're right.
They might be.
They might.
And it was,
I'm being
and
serious.
it was tonight. Okay.
But they might not.
There have been lots of institutions that Donald Trump has taken on since he got elected in all realms, in law and politics and universities, all sorts, military inside the government. I believe what happened yesterday with Paul Weiss, the law firm, is historic and seminal and extraordinary. And even though it's just one law firm, okay, just one law firm, the symbolism of this and the substance of it, to me, is one of the most important and significant and interesting things that's happened in the whole Trump presidency. Okay. And I'll try to briefly explain why. And I'm really curious to see if you guys agree with me or not. Okay. Donald Trump has signed executive orders against 3 liberal law firms, mostly dominated by Democrats. They raise money for Democrats. Their clients are Democrats, basically saying you can't go in government buildings. You can't have security clearances to handle national security cases. And any client you have who has business before the government is going to lose their government contracts. Okay. One law firm went to court and has so far won in the lower court, saying you're targeting us for our business. That's unconstitutional. And so far the district court has said yes. Paul Weiss, instead, is one of the most prestigious and successful law firms in American history, run by a bunch of Democrats. Paul Weiss said, may we come to the Oval Office, bend down, and I'll tell you, I'll use as ungraphic language as I can. They didn't bend down and kiss the ring. They turned around and bent over. That's what they did. And this is the president of the United States interfering in the private sector. Now, this president was abused by the legal system. And from his point of view, he was super abused by the legal system. But I'm comfortable saying he was abused by the legal system. That's my objective view. I'm not saying he didn't do anything wrong in the 4 cases, but the special counsel and the 2 local prosecutors, they engaged in behavior that was stupid, politically stupid, and legally suspect at best. And so he's serious about these law firms. They give money and raise money for Democrats. They take liberal clients. They have DEI policies that he doesn't like. They are part of a power superstructure that tried to put him in prison and works for policies that are antithetical to what he and his followers believe. Okay. And yesterday, they surrendered. I can't think of an analog for this in so many ways. A major American institution, private sector, surrendered. They're giving $30 million in pro bono work to help Donald Trump's agenda. Paul Weiss, $30 million in pro bono legal work to help his agenda.
40.
Yeah, it's 40.
It's 40. Sorry, 40. Apologies. $40 million. Now, they bill at a high rate, although I'm assuming they're charging their pro bono rate, which is a lot lower. I'll try to conclude, and then again, I want to hear first Dan, then Sean, what you guys think about this. I believe that what he's done here is an abject surrender, and it is going to embolden Pam Bondi and the Justice Department to start doing discovery with all these organizations. They don't have to bring the cases or bring the cases to trial. They don't have to pursue them, but they start doing discovery at law firms and other places. They're going to find a lot of stuff that is going to look horrible in the current light of where things stand. And Paul Weiss might think they saved their summers in the Hamptons and their partner salaries by bending over and taking this, but they have set a precedent of surrender that will live on forever, not just for that firm and not just for other law firms, but for other institutions. We see the universities surrendering. This is extraordinary what's happening. Dan.
It's making the mob great again. I mean, these are good old-fashioned shakedowns. I mean, whether it was Amazon, which kind of got glossed over because it was around the inauguration, giving, I think it was $30 million to Melania for her life story when they're under FTC investigation and trying to, going down there to have these dinners. And look, Trump does out in the open what, people used to do in private and takes it to a way greater extent. And he is shaking people down. He is targeting people that he thinks, help Democrats, places that are supportive of Democrats. Now, maybe this is where we're going, and maybe this is going to become commonplace. I think one thing to all the MAGA people on here I'd watch out for, I believe there's going to be huge pressure on 2028ers on the Democratic side to start drawing up their lists. Who would you target? And just like Trump spent all the campaign kind of toward the end out loud saying, I am going to go after these people. And we all laughed. You already see it online. There is pressure to start identifying GOP support.
What would be an example of an analog that a Democratic president could do?
How many industries are supportive of Republicans over Democrats? Crypto?
Give me an example.
I mean, just start going around at everyone because they're all incumbent party members.
But if you if you say a Democratic president says, I'm going to put the crypto business out of business, they're going to use young men.
Look, Trump is not trying to put law firms out of business.
He's trying to put Paul Weiss out of business.
No, he is trying to intimidate them, extract a price from them, and make them think twice before signing up.
Okay, sorry. He's threatening to put them out of business, but you can't threaten to. But Paul Weiss has no constituency except for their gardeners and cooks and nannies in the Hamptons. They have, but their clients will switch to another law firm. They don't care.
Sure.
But what I'm saying is, you can't go after crypto the same way without paying a political price.
Off the top of my head, that's who I came up with. The point is, retribution and going after industries and companies to try to bend and break them away from the GOP will become, I believe,
let me say, I want to get Sean in, but Dan, I'm telling you, the reason you can't come up with an example is because the Democratic groups, the businesses, the universities, etc., they're all liberal and they're part of the liberal superpower structure. They don't have constituencies. They're just liberal elite institutions who have survived for decades, having an unlevel playing field. And Trump is saying you can either be put out of business by the federal government, which is totally improper. I better be explicit about this.
Right, and that's
Trump's threat's totally improper. But Paul Weiss, rather than hiring another law firm to fight it, surrendered.
No, I hear you, Mark.
But I'm just saying that the Democrats can't do it. So let's get Sean in.
There are so many conservative.
Name one. Name one.
University of Chicago and the Stanford Hoover Institute are super conservative. All right.
I mean, there are parts of them that are. There are parts of them.
But that's the point, Mark. They're going to start demanding to pick targets. We'll see.
Okay, we'll see. Sean.
So there's two things that I want to highlight. Number one, when he started doing this, you think about like Perkins Coie and when he started off, they're
the law firm that's fighting back and has won so far.
I'm glad.
And they are, for everyone to know, they are the longtime firm that represented the DSCC, Mark Elias and others who were there, represented the DSCC. They were basically a Democratic political law firm, as like Jones Day does a lot for Republicans. And just to give context. Sorry, Sean.
Sorry, Sean, go ahead.
So number one, when this all started, targeting people who blatantly used government-issued security clearances to weaponize data for political purposes. They should be punished. I hope they go to jail. They lied to the American people. They tried to influence an election. And so some of these people absolutely deserve it. The second point, and again, I'm staying at a high level here, is let's just remember where this all started. For decades, if not a century, the left has owned and canceled and censored everyone on the right. And it got to an extreme in the last few years. What do you think ESG and DEI are all about? Go talk to Larry Fink at BlackRock, who has forced corporations to bend a knee to unfiduciary things because in the case of helping a company, they force them to hire people, they force them to adhere to practices that are not in the best financial interest in a company, but to agree to a left agenda on DEI and ESG, environmental social justice, so governance. This is insane. Suddenly, it's been no one had a problem when companies were being forced to do this, when students were canceled on campus, when kids on the conservative spectrum couldn't speak on campuses. And suddenly now it's, oh my God, a law firm, you know, screw this. I'm happy it's happening. Finally, the right is fighting back and getting results.
So BlackRock was the largest shareholder. That's why they were at the table with those companies. We can debate that is, you know, that they shouldn't advocate for those policies. It was not the federal government using its power. In every example you just gave, it was private industry.
Oh, sorry. Then I should have brought up Facebook and Meta. And when the Biden administration forced those private companies to censor people, to promote certain left-wing policies, cancel other people on the platform, those are public documents. Those were private companies being forced by an administration at the highest level to do their political bidding.
This conversation does not exist today in the news pages of the major papers or on cable news or on broadcast news. The New York Times had 2 good paragraphs about this, explaining the framing. But I'm telling you, Sean's history speaks to tens of millions of Americans. And it's a big part of why Trump won. I actually think you can't do this scientifically. The stuff Sean just cited is a big part of why Trump won. I'm not saying it's bigger than inflation or the border, but it's a big part. And Dan's outrage,
I think especially with a lot of people, and we heard some of them on the platform that finally said, "I've had enough. I don't like Donald Trump. I don't like some of his policies, but I've had enough, and I'm going to vote for the guy." The left made this happen.
I agree, but the left opened the door electorally, and the left is animating, and the outrage is animating what Trump just did. But I'll say again, Dan's outrage and my outrage at the president of the United States engaging in extortionist mob tactics against a major law firm and saying, we will put you out of business if you don't do what we say, is also outrageous. I understand why Trump's doing it. It fits his personality, and he's outraged about what this law firm did to him.
How is that different than when Biden and his team forced Facebook?
They did not threaten to shut Facebook down.
No,
okay.
But I'm outraged by both, and I'd like everybody on this platform to be outraged by both, not what your tribe is outraged by. What the Democrats did, it's not exactly analogous, but that law firm was part of an effort to send Trump to prison, and they did it in part because they're Democrats. Okay. Yeah. But Sean, it can't be we live in a country where the proper response is for the president of the United States to say, bend over, give me $40 million, change your internal policies. What is his business to tell a private law firm how to run their business? What is it his business?
It was Paul Weiss's chairman that came to DC to kiss his ass. They
Correct.
Them and say, "Come visit me."
He had no choice. You know why? Because all their clients are calling them to say, "We're going to switch law firms."
So look, I know the left likes to call this whataboutism, but when Paul Weiss was weaponizing the judicial system, no one said a damn thing.
I did.
Should we bring the Clintons on here about all the people who went after them? Like, should they now go after all the law? I mean, go back to Ken Starr. His behavior was utterly atrocious. And all of his deputies have since written books about how they leaked and coordinated with Fox News and Rush Limbaugh. I mean, come on.
I'll tell you this, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Paul Weiss, I want to know what happened inside Paul Weiss. There's no reporting I've seen so far on that. I want to know what those partners, they said, our nanny will not get paid this summer in the Hamptons unless we give in to these extortionist demands. Yep. And so they did. But it is a watershed moment, not just for that firm, not just for law firms in general. It's a watershed moment for the president of the United States to engage in extortionist mob tactics. I understand why he did it, Sean, but it is an extraordinary moment in American history. This should be the front page story. It's bigger than the power going out at Heathrow.
Listen, the thing that you said at the beginning, which I think is the more fascinating piece, these guys aren't dum-dums. And the idea that they came up with this deal, they signed off on it, they put it out publicly, that's on them. I mean, like, to your point,
they had no choice, Sean. It's the president of the United States saying your business will be gone if you don't do what I say.
Well, I mean, you think that the people at Perkins Coie are any less stupid? I mean, they didn't buy into this. Paul Weiss.
Well, I think they haven't gotten the joke yet that there's a new sheriff in town and he's from the Gambino family. That's what they don't understand. They may say we're going to win in the courts, and their client base is not as vulnerable to the threat that says anyone who you represent can't have a government contract. That's a bigger problem for Paul Weiss than it is for them. All right. I have said about Vice President Harris, former Vice President, again, raise your hand if you want in on the conversation. And if you're a Paul Weiss partner, I'd love to have you here. Kamala Harris, I've said about her Achilles heel is she does not like to make difficult decisions under pressure. The problem with that is it's the job description for president and presidential candidate. I believe that's the main reason she lost. Now she faces a difficult decision under pressure. Should she run for governor of California? Politico reports that the other folks who want to run are sick of waiting. It's only been a couple weeks, but they want to get going. And if she runs, lots of people will sit it out. The fundraising is frozen. Everything's frozen. Now, very little chance that a Republican's going to win the race, but nonetheless, they'd like to get going. So, Sean, if you were advising Kamala Harris, who would like to delay the decision, because she likes to delay every decision, it's a difficult choice. I don't think she wants to be governor of California, so it's stupid to run for governor. But if she runs for governor, she can't run for president. If she runs for governor and loses, it's a nightmare for her. If you were advising her, what would you tell her to do? Take her time or decide quickly, and why?
I would say decide quickly, because the way the environment, and I was actually going to ask Dan this question, but like the way the environment is, if I would seem to believe, and I will do my standard, I'm not a Democrat, no, but I actually think if I were a Democrat, Congressman, Ro Khanna, or and I'm just throwing his name out there, not that he wants to be governor, but like someone else in that Bay Area or in the LA area, and said, hey, why not take a shot? The environment seems ripe for the upstart fighter, not the defender of the Biden-Harris agenda. I would actually argue. So to your point, Mark, I would say to Kamala, if you don't act quick, someone's going to take advantage of this and fill the vacuum or believe that it's an upstart. Not only do you need to act quick, you need to get the donors on your side. You need to get a huge kitty raised so that you can scare off people. But I actually think the longer she waits, the more that if I were a county supervisor, I'd say, I want to be the one that shows that I got the fight in me that no one else is exhibiting.
Dan.
Yeah, look, I think there's two paths, because the party is now, like, I think is having this fight now out loud. It's getting more aggressive about how we get out of the wilderness. And you can either get in front and try to lead one of the paths out of the wilderness, right, and be rewarded for it. Or you can stay on the sidelines, try to keep your uniform clean, not get tagged with, the losing side or whatever, and then try to like jump to the front of the line and say, thanks for all your work to like blaze the path. Now I'll take the baton. I think, to Sean's point, for a candidate whose history is being very indecisive and frankly very afraid of challenging anyone, if she waits, and to Sean's point, whether it's a county supervisor or some member of Congress, catches fire with a message, with a like, here's how we're going to do it, I think Harris suddenly looks like she's yesterday's news and she was too afraid of the fight. And I think that's even true on the presidential level. Like, if that's where she really wants to go. I know that the old playbook totally was wait until, yeah. So I think if somebody leaves him out of the wilderness, he or she's going to get rewarded.
Yep, I agree. This is the moment when somebody who fights the establishment wins.
And every day she waits, she reinforces the view I have of her and many have of her, that she just doesn't want to make tough decisions. You want to run for governor of California, run for governor. Don't sit around and have a million consultations. All right. Back to get your questions. We have lots of new people with hands up. Super psyched to get to you. Sean, winner of the week.
So I in light of this conversation, I actually I'm even more confident that I think the conservative movement is the winner. Trump's dismantling DEI. He's going after the Department of Education. He's fighting back. All of these things the conservatives have said, we've got to get a spine. We got to actually do stuff. He's doing it. And I think the movement is the big winner this week.
Dan.
The Democrats, because they're finally having fights they need to have to move forward.
Sean is correct. MAGA. We talked about this last night on Two-Way Tonight. Polling shows that the MAGA movement is now in the more than 30% of Americans consider themselves part of the MAGA movement. It's bigger than any other movement, and they had wins galore. And they're consolidating their support behind J.D. Vance. He's going to have a huge advantage running for president.
Mark, did you see James Blair, those quote in Politico, that he is a little worried that MAGA is so happy and Democrats are so angry?
I did.
Yeah,
I did. Super interesting. But they're angry, and they're angry. They're just as angry as they're at their own leaders as they are at Donald Trump. Dan, loser of the week.
Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
By the way, you know what, Mark? You name checked James Blair. He was awesome during the campaign, and I think James is one of those understated DC operatives that people don't fully appreciate. A, how much power the guy wields, and B, how smart the guy is and tactically. And I think
Agreed.
He's a huge sort of hidden player on the team. Trump.
Loser of the week, Sean.
Hands down, Chuck Schumer.
Yeah. I know you both are right when you say Schumer, but I'll put in another plug for my friends at Paul Weiss. They are huge losers. They think they've saved the firm. They've destroyed America. How's that?
The winner
Sean,
is Chuck Schumer.
Sean, what are you looking for this week? This weekend.
So it's a big family weekend. My wife will kill me, but it is her birthday tomorrow. Both kids get confirmed. So this is a Spicer family weekend.
All right, Dan.
Well done, Sean. I am watching to see if Columbia settles tonight. Friday night news dump. They leaked earlier this week. They were about to capitulate on top of Paul Weiss. If Democrats were depressed this morning, they'll be even more depressed Saturday morning.
All right, two things for me. One, of course, March Madness. I just love the tournament. It's just so incredible, and there's so many ways to watch it now. Put up the Meet the Press guest lineup. Here's the other thing I'm looking for. Sean and I, in particular, have a fascination with the booking of the Meet the Press roundtable. They seem to not recognize that the MAGA movement is substantial. You're gonna have to tell me who all those people are. But here we go. So here's who's on the panel. Sean, rate these people in terms of how anti-Trump they are. 0 being Bernie Sanders, or 0 being James Blair, 10 being AOC. Okay. Yamiche Alcindor.
10+.
Yeah. Adrienne Elrod.
I mean, Adrian's a nice person, but she's a Democratic operative. So
yeah, 10 plus. Hallie Jackson.
10+.
Ooh. Stephen Hayes, Republican.
Steve's a brilliant guy, but he's a never Trumper. I mean, he literally founded.
So once again, Meet the Press has booked a panel. I mean, Sean may be overstating it slightly. I say respectfully, but there's no one pro-Trump on that panel. They're all avowedly, with the exception of Hallie Jackson, the other three are avowedly anti-Trump. And Hallie is a journalist whose coverage is not pro-Trump. How about if I say it that way? And they're acting like Trump is not the president. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how that panel.
But just, and again, I want to just put my little disclaimer. They have every right. This is America. You want to have an anti-Trump panel, have one.
Of course.
The idea that they are framing themselves as here's our all-star panel where you'll find out. If you are watching that to find out what Trump is thinking, then you should watch me to find out, how to perform neurosurgery. That's just the dumbest idea. So they can have that panel. There's nothing wrong with that inherently, but they also have another channel called MSNBC. They just have allowed that to bleed into their quote news channel. But what service are you providing? If you want to have a panel and tell people that you're giving them insight into politics when inherently you're not, then don't lie about it.
100%. Liz, welcome in. You and what's that pupper's name?
This is Frida. I think she's
Frida.
been hearing you for many months say dogs get the view.
Yeah, and don't forget, we're going to have a show with dogs coming up soon. It's going to be the best show on Two-Way. Liz, welcome in. Have you been on this platform before?
I have not.
Well, welcome in. Thank you for joining.
On YouTube.
Where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from southeastern Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. We actually live in Wallingford, which is right, like Swarthmore College campus is our backyard. So
would you watch a Two-Way program weekly with a great dog trainer talking about how to care for dogs and talk to other dog owners about it?
I probably would. Frida, as you can tell, is a perfect angel, but we
I
might
see
be
that.
expanding our brood.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Good to hear.
budget.
Thank you for joining. And how'd you find two-way?
I don't even remember.
All right. It's just become such a part of the fabric of your life. It's like be saying,
A part of our family.
how did you learn to drink water? Right.
That's right. That's
All right. Well,
right.
welcome in. We're delighted to have you both here, and we'd love to know what's on your mind.
Well, first of all, I got tickets to the DC Live event for my husband's 50th birthday, and we brought our 17-year-old. It was like so awesome. But the best thing, many good things came out of it. The trip was lovely, family time. But one of the best things was I am like Aaron, who called earlier this week, where I have friends, who are resistant, my mom, to tuning in. And there is nothing better. We saw ourselves at the end of the highlight reel, and there's nothing better than having a video to send your people to get them hooked. So I would just recommend anybody who is having trouble getting people, be strategic. The questions are at the end of the show. Don't send them the clip, send them the whole show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I love everything about what you just said. I'm glad you came, and we'll be doing more events soon. What do you want to ask about?
Well, really quickly, two things, and then I'll pop off. But Sean, earlier in the week, you asked a caller, Frank, would he consider an outside the box candidate? And this came up a little bit last night, but it's very interesting, and it feels like now is the time. But like, how long would that process actually take for someone who wanted to make a real run? And could they be like a celebrity would be less appealing to me? I'm not really looking. I'm not currently in the market for it or anything, but like, I don't know, how long when would they have to start even like, I guess engaging? And then how could they fast track their acceptance into the Washington establishment and like their understanding of how things work and things like that? And then I'll say the third thing, and then I won't take up any more time, but like, this is for another day. Dan, I am obsessed with your bookshelf, and I've dedicated 2025 to nonfiction. So like at some point, if there's ever a way you can post your top 3, anybody's welcome to it. But yeah, like
that's gonna be tough. I have 4 books, so he'd have to choose.
It's true. Sean, I'm gonna get you on the list. It's good.
Thank you.
So anyway, that was it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining. We loved having you on, and please come back regularly and get ready for the dog show.
Yes. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, that was a good start to our community.
You want an answer?
All right.
I was going to say, she asked Sean a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Look, I would just say this, regardless of the party, if you're not in the bloodstream, that's the biggest obstacle you have. 2 things. 1, your name. Well, 3 things. 1, your name ID. 2, your ability to raise money. And then 3, the rules. So the parties are very, very guarded about how you get on ballot access, how you get delegates, all that stuff. Each of them have their own arcane set of rules. So hiring the right people, and every time you see an outside, I mean, you remember Wesley Clark back in the day, all these prominent people from the military and business who try to jump in. The problem is, people think that somehow it's like literally Monday morning quarterbacking. You're like, if I was in the game, what I would do, and there's a big difference between watching it on a television and having 12 guys run at you that want to sack you. So understanding the game is probably the hardest thing. And so getting a team together, raising money, there's very few people on either side that could break through. I mean, and then, part of the problem too is that really, really smart people have a hard time understanding that, yes, you're really smart at business or the military or sports or whatever. This is not like, you need good, smart people around you that can explain the system and the process and who the players are. So you'd have to, sooner rather than later, you'd need to be getting a team together, testing the waters, figuring out who your donor base is, putting lists together. The more outside you are, the sooner you need to jump in. Dan?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's not often talked about, but Mark, you talk about it a lot. Donald Trump in 2011, 12, 13, 14 was having a lot of conversations and laying groundwork and showing up at CPAC. And it was not an accident that when he went in 15.
Thank you both. Justin, apparently you're new also, according to the aggressive signage that you put up. Welcome and thank you for joining.
Attempts to be Karl Rove and put my points on a whiteboard.
Yes, sir.
No,
Thank you for joining.
New. Yeah.
Where are you from, Justin?
Yes, exactly. So I'm calling from the great state of South Carolina.
Love South Carolina. Where in South Carolina?
North of Charleston area. So we can get into this. I technically
Yeah.
live in Jim Clyburn's district, but if I threw a stone across the street, I'd be in Nancy Mace's district. So
yeah. What color is the barbecue sauce you put on your pig if you're not a vegetarian?
Well, we use red sauce in most of the places down here, but I know we get some slack from the North Carolina folks about moist versus not moist. So that's, again, we can have a whole conversation about that.
Just tell us your favorite place, and then you can move on to whatever you want.
Home Team Barbecue in Charleston. Shameless plug out there.
Okay. Home Team Barbecue, the next sponsor of the morning meeting, I hope. Thank you for joining. Grateful to have you here. What's on your mind, sir?
So I'd love to have a conversation about masculinity. It's kind of, going back, I think right after the DNC elections, James Carville went on a rant saying that he thinks the Democrats have lost the male vote for a generation, if not two. And it's funny you mentioned Outkick earlier today, because Clay Travis posed the question a day later that, Dan, I'd love to ask you right now. 3 seconds, give me your fastest name. Name the most masculine Democrat serving in any form, like level of government today. 3, 2, 1, go.
John Fetterman.
Okay, to take a page out of Mark's book.
Well,
the correct answer is Wes Moore.
You can see yourself having a beer, and you can see him kicking someone's ass.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about Wes Moore. Like, I see him jumping around at the Army-Navy football game. Sean, go Navy. But the bigger fact is, I think the politicians you think about on the Democratic side, the Schumers, the Adam Schiffs, so on and so forth. Yeah, you can't really say, I think I could have a beer with these people, but it's less about the politicians, and I'm thinking more about the talking heads underneath. So peace, love, and understanding. Just let me preface this first. I'm thinking about like a Brian Stelter versus a Sean Hannity. You go to the podcast, you have the Ruthless folks, the Fifth Column folks versus Pod Save America. And then the influencers, your Charlie Kirks, your Ben Shapiro's versus, like I said, I think Ezra Klein and Tim Miller write really well. And then you've got that Harry Sisson character, which that's a whole nother conversation too. So again, I like to think of myself as an option.
Justin, this is a great topic. It is subjective though, right? Like, be more specific. What are you keying off of to say where you see the contrast? Is it the way they dress, the way they talk, the words they use, their physical stature?
Yeah,
what are you basing
I don't want to question anybody's bravado or machismo. Again, peace, love, and understanding. But the contrast is just so sharp.
But where do you see it? You got to be more specific. I'm not denying you're right. I just want to know where you see it. In their manner, in their word choice, in their tone?
In their manner, in their word choice. I don't want to say their worldview either, but again, I think somebody said, you look at a picture of Joe Biden with an ice cream cone versus Donald Trump with a 7-iron. And like that, again, masculinity is so subjective, but that's kind of, it's like an innate thing, like or you don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
so I would just love to know.
Justin, some of that is how the candidates brand themselves. I don't know if you know this, Joe Biden's an active golfer. Joe Biden was actually, prior to getting to be too old, was actually a pretty good golfer. And I'll actually remind you, like Barack Obama was a golfer and got hammered by a certain candidate for golfing too much. Look, I totally get what you're saying. Stephen A. Smith is probably the only person on the Democratic side, and he's not really a political person, but he's certainly gravitating into it because he's an alpha dog, right? The way he dresses, the way he talks, the way he's kind of like in your face with like some smack and some trash talking, and he can talk about 20 different stuff.
Steph Curry's a Democrat.
Yeah, but Steph Curry's not in the public realm talking as much, right? I mean, there are a lot of athletes that are Democrats. There are actually some sports people who I won't name who are on air who are Democrats, but they would never in this environment want their names out there. Yeah. But I get Justin's point.
Hold on. Sean, most macho person I know. What do you think?
I think Justin's absolutely right. I mean, I think part of the problem is in my opinion, when you were probing him, the thing that I think is so many Democrats are apologetic for their masculinity. They don't want to be they're like they feel like they can't say it because they have to prove that their pronouns are appropriate or whatever, as opposed to being like, I'm proud to be a father and a dad, and here's the way that I respect women. I mean, like this, they've created this culture where it's bad to be proud to be a man and to be a father and to stand up for your kids and to talk about right and wrong, the difference between how young boys are supposed to treat young women. That somehow that we shouldn't talk about that because we should treat about everybody being treated. It's like there are differences in the genders, and there are differences and frankly, like things that are very, very vastly different about what makes each gender excel. And we should be proud of that. And the problem is, I think in the Democratic Party, they've decided that the way to do that is to sort of, make it ambiguous. Like, well, we can't say it. And so, yes, it's a little about how you dress, but I think, Dan hit the nail. Stephen A. Smith comes across as a tough guy. He doesn't feel like, that he speaks with authority, and it's not about saying man or woman. It's just that he's unapologetic in his views.
I'll just add something to this because I think
Cuban's pretty masculine.
Who?
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban.
Yeah, but I think that's because for the last 8 years, who have Democrats targeted in both the primary and in the general election? Women, right? Suburban women. Who did Trump, go to because he thought he was in trouble with women on abortion? They said young men might be our demographic. And so again, you market and brand yourself to those audience. Who is Stephen A. Smith's audience? Men who watch sports talk radio and ESPN. That is kind of his bread and butter, why he's going to get 25 million a year.
And fans of the Village People and Cats.
Yeah, so I think, but you now are seeing Democrats saying wait, time out. That's why, Tim Walz is pretty goofy about it. But I think some of this is his attempt to go for the bro. He's the worst, he's not a good messenger for it, but I get what he's trying to do because the party realizes it's a little effeminate and maybe not a little.
Back to Reagan. We've had the gender gap. We've had the mommy daddy and the mommy party and the daddy party, right? This is not new, but I really do think, and I'm going to avoid the specifics because I'm not looking to have my Twitter feed or my inbox besieged today on a Friday. But Justin, there's no doubt that stylistically what you're saying is true, not 100%, but there's no doubt that it's true. And I think both Dan and Sean have talked about why that is to some extent. But it certainly is. And it's a huge problem for the Democrats, in part because of demographics, but also because of content, right? Appealing content to men on social, on podcasts, etc., is going to be a little bit more swaggery and more politically incorrect. And the stuff that is said on some of these podcasts that Trump did, if a Democrat did them, they'd face questions about it, and that's an asymmetry, right? I'm always looking for the asymmetries, right? There's a huge asymmetry, and it until the cultural change of the last few years, it's something that Democrats maybe work to their favor. Maybe it's not working to their favor right now. Definitely not working to their favor right now. Thank you for coming in, sir. Grateful to have you on. Please come back regularly. All right. I'll try to bring in Matt in a very macho way. Matt has the most macho beard I've ever seen.
Oh,
Matt, welcome in, man. That thing's awesome. We're glad to have you on. Tell us where you're calling and what's on your mind.
I'm from the Portland, Oregon area. And I really actually wanted to talk about, well, first, thank you so much for this platform. It's a great place to get out of partisan echo chambers, which I think are
Thank you
one of
that.
the most problematic things with the modern media system is the echo chambers and the censorship, especially on the left, where you're not allowed to think or hear or the other side, which is just a really dangerous place to be. And I think that's what you just called out as an asymmetry. If you can't engage an idea on its merits, you end up with this sort of shrinking island of believers, and your one response to that is to kick the non-believers off the island. It's not viable.
Amen.
For a balanced ecosystem. Anyway,
absolutely.
To that, kind of follow up on that is I wanted to point out two really cool long form interviews, which I feel have been the big benefit of the new media culture, with the All In podcast with Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick, helping to explain the tariffs and fiscal policy in a way that isn't just sound bites and noise.
When did that drop?
Was that just this week?
It was this week. They had
I missed that.
The besties go to Washington, and these are two of the best interviews I've ever heard.
Were they jointly interviewed together?
No, it was two separate interviews.
Two separate interviews. Okay. Didn't know.
Chamath
That's interesting.
And I always forget his name. The science one. Really, the one who's usually more neutral and insightful. I don't know. Anyway,
all right. Well, that's a great recommendation. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know about it. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Very helpful. And their publicist needs to do a better job.
And then also the story yesterday about the huge Coast Guard seizure of drugs that just didn't seem to get covered anywhere, and how Kristen Noem was out there talking about how the Coast Guard did this like record seizure of illegal drugs, and how the Border Patrol is now working that 2 months after there was a firing of the top Coast Guard person. It just feels like if you step back from the noise of the minute, you start seeing these patterns of interesting trends. Anyway.
Thank you for that. Thank you for coming on. Really grateful to have you be part of the platform, and thank you for tipping us off to that, which I should have been tracking, but hadn't been because I'm traveling. Thank you, sir. Have a great weekend. Thank you for being part of the two-way. All right. Let's see. Where are we going next here? Phil, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind, please.
I will say Kenneth Woods is doing a phenomenal job with kids. That's some of the best prop use in morning meeting history.
Now with that, Phil, go ahead.
Phil doesn't need no stinking props.
That's right, exactly. The working man.
I'm in the suburbs of Cincinnati in Westchester.
Nice.
With four-way or three-way, sir?
3.
For those who don't know, we're talking about chili. Three-way is no onions, right? Four ways with the onions?
So 4-way, you get a choice between the onion and the beans. 5-way is all of it. So it's spaghetti, chili, cheese. That's the 3-way.
That's the 3-way.
4-way is spaghetti, chili, and then the choice between the beans and the onions, and then the cheese. 5-way is all of it.
Got it. All right. So everybody's got that down. If you're in Cincinnati, which includes the airport, which is in Kentucky, where you can buy it. What's on your mind, sir? Thank you for joining.
I actually wanted to talk about a couple of things way off topic. Mark, you've had your dad on a couple of times. Do you and have you worked with your dad?
I interned for him one summer in college. Other than that, we help each other on individual stuff in kind of a one-off manner, but we've never worked together in a sustained way. I'd like to. We just haven't had the opportunity yet.
So I started working with my dad about a year ago. We're in construction, and wound up being a very good decision. Yeah. I've had a blast working with that. Highly recommend it to everybody.
All right. Well, my dad's working on his memoirs, and I'm helping him with that. It's not the same as construction, but it's the best we can do. But I'm glad you two are doing that together, because it's very rewarding when it works out.
Yes. The other two questions that I had with baseball season upon us, opening day being next week in Cincinnati. If you haven't been to opening day in Cincinnati, you have to come to opening day in Cincinnati. We do it right. Parades, parties, whole deal. Have to come. Who's your guys' favorite sports teams, and who's going to win the World Series this year?
Sean.
Not Boston.
Just what seats we have will be there. I'm a Red Sox fan through and through.
Not right.
Dan.
Say.
I'm a Mets fan, a kid of the 80s, the mid 80s, when the Mets were, kind of on the rise and a great team. I'm actually somewhat optimistic for the first time, maybe since the late 80s, that the Mets may legitimately be a World Series contending team. I frankly love almost every sport. I grew up listening to sports talk radio when WFAN was founded. They were the first sports talk radio out of New York, and Mike and the Mad Dog. And so can't get enough of it. I'm pretty equal opportunity. Although NASCAR is not my thing. That just, I never got into it.
Yeah. So baseball has a number of adorable stadiums, and then there's Wrigley, and then there's the only stadium that really counts, Fenway. Like Sean, I'm a Red Sox fan. I don't know that they're going to win the World Series this year. I think it's pretty. This seems like to
Not
me
a World Series if they're not
this
in
seems yeah this seems to me to be a pretty wide open year. I think it's hard to pick any team at this point to be the favorites, I would say. Thank you, sir. Grateful to you.
Yep.
Did you have one more question?
No, I didn't have a question. I did want to say, Dan, thank you for your honesty on the Democratic side. That's kind of what got me into two-way, was hearing a Democrat being honest during the election, which was very hard to find. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for coming on, sir. Love having you. And as Sean said, send us a PDF that shows where the seats are that you'd put us in, and we'll see if we can make it there. We'll do a live two-way event at your home if the tickets are good enough. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right.
And by the way, St. Louis may argue over best opening day. They've always claimed.
I've been to St. Louis opening day.
Really?
Not as good as the Red Sox.
Ooh.
It's good. I don't want to denigrate my hosts, but it's just, Fenway. I mean, for those of you who haven't been to Fenway, your adorable little stadiums, you're welcome to keep going. But go to Fenway.
There's a Spicer brick in, I think it's the C concourse.
What does that mean?
Back, I don't know, a couple decades ago, you could buy, have a brick engraved.
Oh, okay. One of the purchase ones, not because like your great grandfather hit a home run or something.
Maybe, I would say Fenway's a great park. You got to go if you're a fan. But from a enjoyment standpoint, it is not a great ballpark. I mean,
then you're not.
And I love America, and I love New England. Yep.
Dan, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? There's no better place to watch a sporting event.
Oh, it's cramped. The seats don't all even face home plate. Some of them just face out in the outfield. They're like half.
Let me just.
Seats.
I'm gonna
welcome to New England, dude. That's like.
Yeah.
That's
what are you, wicked stupid or something?
You know how many birthday parties I went to at Fenway as a kid? Like, it was no Shea Stadium.
Oh my god.
I love Fenway. The only two concerts I've seen at Fenway, I saw Bruce Springsteen there, and then my son's first concert was Paul McCartney at Fenway Park. 3.5-hour show, no opening act. The band took breaks. Paul didn't. When the band took breaks, Paul just played. I've told my son I'm never taking to another concert. That'll be his first and last. Paul McCartney at Fenway. Good wicked memories. All right, so that's it for the week. If they're breaking news, we'll come back. But otherwise, and Claire, I'm sorry I didn't get you. We're just out of time, but please come back. We haven't seen you in a while. Very nice to see you. If you haven't watched Michael Moynihan's debut episode of the Moynihan Report that aired yesterday, please go to our website and take a look at it. A very interesting conversation with Anthony Weiner, and it's a great show, an extremely well-produced show as well. And Michael is one of the great talents in America. So I recommend you watch that. Sean, what do you have on tonight?
Tonight, the CEO of Strive Asset Capital, it's a firm founded by Vivek Ramaswamy, talks about tariffs. We're going to talk about ESG, DEI, what we talked about today, and what the effort of Doge is doing to the economy and to investment. So I'm excited.
6 o'clock, two-way tonight. We're going to talk about what Trump and Hegseth does, maybe more about Elon Musk, but most of the hour will be devoted to another monologue by me about Paul Weiss. No, just kidding. But we will talk more about it. I'll be curious to see what Eli Lake has to say about it. If you don't know Mr. Lake, he's a brilliant guy, great writer, a great thinker, and his ethos very consistent with this platform. Like Chief Justice Roberts aspires to do. He just calls balls and strikes as he sees them. And so I'll see you at 6. Then we'll be back Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern time, as if the weekend never happened, with full coverage of March Madness, the surrender of Paul Weiss Rifkin, part day 17 or whatever it will be by then, and more of your questions and comments. Couldn't be more grateful for you as a community. We've had so many new people on this week, which is incredible. New dogs, new humans. And we'll see you. I'll see you tonight. Sean will see you tonight. And then 3 of us will be back Monday. Gentlemen, have a great weekend. Sean, congratulations on all the family stuff. And we look forward to
None of
a
it's
full
mine.
report.
None of it's mine.
I understand.
It's costing me. It's all costing me.
Happy birthday. Happy confirmations. And again, thank you all for watching.
Good weekend.
Goodbye.